Hello friends. So today's video is going to be a list of some books that I find a lot of people are very divided on. So when I say that these books are polarizing, I don't mean that they're polarizing because of some kind of political aspect to them or that there's something to do with religion or something like that that would maybe offend people. These are just purely, some people either really love these and will die for the characters in the books or just love how different the books are, and then other people are basically like, I hated that. I thought that was terrible. The first book on the list would be Gideon the Ninth. So this whole video idea was kind of sparked after I recently was in a reading sprint with my friend Angela from the channel Literature Science Line, so I'll have her channel linked down below. Before we started reading, we were chatting about books, and we were talking about Gideon the Ninth, and there was this sort of discussion about how Gideon the Ninth, there is a percentage of people that love this book, and they love it so much, it's essentially the greatest thing. They think it's amazing. They love how unique it is. They love how different it is. They love the characters in the story. Everything about it is just perfect. And then you get other people who are like, I wish I had DNF'd that book. I kept waiting for it to become this amazing, awesome story, and I just was still waiting by the time that I got to the end. So I have started this book in the past, and then I had so many other things that I needed to get around to that I put it down, but the little bit that I had read, I actually really liked. So I'm hoping that of course, I'm hoping for all of these. I'm in the camp of, I absolutely love this. This is amazing. I don't even want to hear it from all of you who don't like it. I'm hoping I fall into that camp, but alas, I have not yet completed it, and I haven't been able to come back to it. When I do come back to it, I will start fresh, and I'm just gonna see where I fall. While Gideon the Ninth was the spark for this video, this next book I feel like epitomizes this topic, and that would be The Invisible Life of Addie Larue. So I'm quite a big fan of V.E. Schwab's works. I like a lot of the books she's written. I've read quite a few of the books she's written, and I've always enjoyed them. I have never picked one up and disliked it. There are some I like more than others, but I've never picked up one of her books and thought, ugh, I hate this. And Addie Larue definitely sounds like it's the moodiest of her books, and it kind of just sort of settles in and thinks about itself. I do like books that are introspective and reflective, but I do find that sometimes some books take it to an extreme that ends up not being my taste. And so I've never been sure if that's what Addie Larue is going to be for me or not. But beyond that, I have seen people on completely opposite ends when it comes to their enjoyment of this. So some people picked it up and they're like, you know what, it spoke to me. It was beautiful. I really appreciated what it touched on. And then other people are like, I don't understand why it's so boring. There's also the added fact that I think a lot of you know the premise of the story, but if you don't, this girl has the ability to live for a very long time. But the negative side to this is that she is destined to be forgotten. So people will not ever remember who she is. She can't really have these connections, even though she can live for a very long amount of time. And so it explores, what is life without these connections with other people and things like that. And I think it'll be really interesting to read those themes. However, because the character can live for a very long time, she's traveled to all of these places and she's interacted with people throughout history. And apparently it's a very Western amount of viewing people and interesting events in history, and we pretty much never see her explore anywhere else or interact with basically anyone else that isn't from the Western lens. And so some people felt like it wasn't really fully capturing this person who can travel and go wherever they want. They can do whatever they want. They're basically immortal. Why would you not want to explore all these other amazing places in the world? Next up, we have the Icewind Trilogy by R.A. Salvatore. So I have wanted to get into some of the Forgotten Realms for quite a while. I have wanted to read the Dritz books for quite a while. There's a lot of them, so I don't know that I'll get to all of them. But this one, I would say there's a couple of things that, it's not just the story itself. There's a couple of things that people are very passionate about when it comes to these books. One of them is where to start. Some people feel you should start with the Dark Elf series. Some people feel you should start with the Icewind series. Some people feel it makes more sense to start with publication order. Some people feel like it makes more sense to go chronologically in the order of events within the books. And if you say, I want to pick this one up first, some people get really frustrated and they're like, no, don't. That's a stupid idea. And they get really mad. So there's that as just far as where you should begin. And then on top of that, I do think there's this I'm going to stick my nose up at these sort of sword and sorcery type of books because fantasy is above that now. And I think this stems from the fact that for so long, there has been this superiority from fans of other genres toward fantasy. For a long time, fantasy was seen as lesser, and they would kind of stereotype fantasy. They would put limitations on what fantasy could be, these people from the outside looking in, and they would insist it was just a bunch of fun, fluffy, ridiculous adventure stories, which there's nothing wrong with fun, fluffy adventure stories, just want to say. They play a role in bringing joy to our lives. But the idea that fantasy can't be more than that is just untrue. And I think there are some people that they resent books that sort of represent that stereotype of all fantasy is. And I think when you think about fun, action-packed adventure fantasy, you think the Drizzt stories. So I think that's where some people fall a little bit. Next up, we have the Night Circus. This definitely falls into the people that love it like it's the greatest thing they've ever picked up. A lot of people think that this is one of the most magical, whimsical, lush, lovely worlds. And it is somewhat bordering on magical realism. You do find it sometimes sold in the fiction section rather than in the fantasy section. And there's just something to it that, because I have started this book before and then had to put it down, this one I can understand that whimsical, it's just filled with this beautiful, magical feeling. I understand where people get that feeling from. I had to put it down because when I had started it, it was right when my father wasn't doing well. And so at that time, I just kind of had to drop everything I was doing. And I haven't yet come back to it, but I have wanted to come back to this. I also really like reading fantasy standalones, and this is a fantasy standalone, so it's ridiculous that I still haven't picked it up. However, while there are people that think that this book is beautiful, and while it is a very well-known and well-loved book, there is a camp of people that think this is one of the most boring books they have ever read. They don't get why people like it. They feel that the magic is just so over the top and just things just happen with no explanation. It's the epitome of soft magic that they get frustrated, and they don't feel like there's any connection to things. The whole book is a vibe. The whole book is an aesthetic, and nobody actually has a real personality, or nothing really even happens that makes them feel anything. And the people that dislike it really dislike it. I think I saw someone once say their personality is disliking that book. And I will be very curious. The little bit I read, I was surprised that people had said the writing style is incredibly gorgeous, because I had thought the writing style was nice, but it wasn't the most extraordinary writing style I'd come across. So I was a little surprised that praise has been put on this book so much. But again, I didn't get all that far, and then maybe if I pick it up again and I read further and complete the book, I will agree with that. But I don't know. It's hard with books like this for me to figure out if they're going to be books I love or not, because I am such a character-driven reader, and I don't know that when people talk about the Night Circus, they really think character-driven. So we'll find out. Every now and then those aesthetic, vibey books do end up appealing to me, and then other times I don't really feel a whole lot, so we'll see. The next two, I have spoken of these for years, and they really, truly, I need to prioritize these. If not in the second half of this year, then immediately the beginning of next year. Those books would be Queen of the Tearling and Bloodsong. So to be clear, I have read both of these. I did not continue on in the series. This is the part I've said many times, because I was a little nervous, because everybody says that the first books are the best and that the series go downhill. Queen of the Tearling, before I even saw people saying that about Queen of the Tearling, when I finished it, I really liked that book a lot. And then I looked at the second one just to see. I think I wasn't sure what the reading order was, so I was looking on Goodreads. And it's so funny because usually the further into a series you kind of get rid of the people that didn't like it, and so really the only people that are continuing on are the people who already enjoy the series. So the average ratings go up. The second book, average rating was pretty good. Third book, tanked. The third book's average rating is so low compared to the others that I remember being like, uh-oh. And then I saw other people talking about how they hated the ending. It was awful. However, I do want to read the whole thing. I really want to know what happens. And I think going into it, sometimes when you know a lot of people hate an ending, it softens the blow. It makes it so it's not as bothersome to you, because you already have this idea that it's going to be terrible, and then it can't quite live up to the negative hype, if you will. So I'm hoping that's what happens with that. I'm also hoping that's what happens with Bloodsong. And I think part of the reason a lot of people don't love the sequels is because in Bloodsong, you focus on the main character of that story, Valen, who I loved. And in the sequels, it ends up turning into a multiple perspective story. I have had some of you say, you know what, I think the hate toward the end of both of those series is a little exaggerated. I think you won't mind it as much as everyone says. So I'm hoping that's the case. That's it for some books that are somewhat polarizing among my friends, among other readers. I'm very curious where you fall on these books, but then also what are some books that you have found you want to read that everybody seems to be very divided on. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you all later. Bye.